What paranormal experience convinced you that ghosts are real? Story 1. Around 1 p.m., me and my brother was at a grocery store and we bumped into one of his friends from high school. They greeted each other and made some small talk. I also said hi since we were schoolmates. That night, around 8 p.m., my brother received a call that his friend, who was in a coma for 12 HRs, just died. He thought he was receiving a prank call since we just met the guy 7 HRs earlier. Story 2. The day my grandpa died, my grandma asked me to stay the night because she didn't want to be alone. It was a very hard day for everyone, especially her. I didn't have much knowledge of ghosts or paranormal cause. I was 13, and I never got into that stuff until later. I go in the guest bedroom and get ready for bed. As I'm laying down trying to sleep, I get sad thinking about the day we just had and how much I was going to miss him. I said a prayer and ended it with, "I love you, Papa. Good night." 1 second later, I hear his distinct voice say, "Good night." I leap out of bed and run into the living room, turn on the lights and TV, and just sat there trying to figure out what just happened. A few hours later, my grandma came out and I told her what happened. She started to cry and sat with me the rest of the night. Answer: grief is incredibly intense and powerful. I had terrifying auditory hallucinations when my best friend died on my living room floor. I felt like he was with me for days, and one day it was like his spirit was just gone. I'd lay down and hear our favorite songs playing. If I tried to block them out, they would get louder. It's amazing what grief can do to you. I'm so sorry for your loss. Story 3. I was in a minor car accident. T-boned at an intersection. About 100 meters before I hit the intersection, I felt a hand on my shoulder and a male tell me to slow down. I was already a few kms under speed limit, doing 55 in 60 zone. I was in the car with my then 3.5-year-old daughter. She was on passenger side in the rear and would not have been able to touch me through her restraints. Other car hit me at high speed in the front passenger side. If I'd been going any faster, my daughter would have taken the impact and not survived. A few days later, my very healthy and uninjured daughter was babbling in her bedroom. I went to check on her and she told me she was just talking to Grandpa K. I asked where he was and she pointed to the corner of her room. I figured it was just her imagination and walked away. About a week after that, she was at my mom's house and said, not verbatim, "Hey Grandma, Sonny says to say he is sorry he left, but he is looking after Mum for you. Grandpa K is my mum's dad. He died before I was born and Mum never really mentioned him or her mum, also dead before I was born, when I was growing up. Grandpa K's nickname was Sonny. I didn't even know that until that moment." Answer: kids are odd with stuff like that. An old friend had a nephew whose mom was of Polish, I think decent, and one day the kid says Mugaga, phonetic spelling, I'm not sure, was in his closet. We are like, "Okay, kid," told the mom later, and she looked perplexed. Apparently that what her family called the boogeyman. She called up her mom and was like, "Why are you telling him about Mugaga?" Her mom swore up and down she never once said that word name around him. Creepy AF. Glad yours was a good story, not creepy like that was. Story 4. I was en route home from a 12-day vacation, driving a pickup pulling a fifth-wheel RV. It was about 11 p.m. on a Saturday night in late July, and I was about 2 hours from home, trying to make it home yet that night. I was in a very rural area where there is almost no one living on about a 20-mile stretch of road. There is only one combination gas station tavern motel on here, and it's heavily wooded on both sides. It is county maintained and fenced at the tree line. The shallow ditches had been mowed and the grass was about 6 inches high. I only saw a couple of cars on this whole stretch of road. I was going only about 50 mph because it is heavily populated with deer. I saw movement ahead, so I immediately slowed more. As I passed, I saw it was a young woman, tall, fit brunette, wearing a crop top, pleated skirt, and stockings, walking with the traffic, just off of the shoulder. I immediately thought car trouble, though I had not passed a disabled car or fight with boyfriend driver and was put out. I pulled to the side of the road, hit the emergency flashers, and grabbed the flashlight to check on her. When I got to the rear of the camper, there was no one. I looked around for her. There was no way she would have reached the back of the RV before I did, so she could not have been hiding there. She could not have hid in the ditches as the grass was too short. She could not have made it to and over the fence without a light in the little time it took me to get to the rear of the RV. I looked where she had been walking, and I saw no sign that the dew on the grass had been disturbed. I drove the rest of the way home with the hair on the back of my neck standing on end. Story 5. When I stayed at my aunt's house for a night, I slept in a room that had all the furniture of my great-grandmother, who passed away a few years prior, including the couch I slept on. At night, I woke up to the room being freezing cold. Despite no opened windows, doors, and the heating unit of the house working very well, suddenly I heard loud noises in the dark, and when I turned on the light, I saw my great-grandma's old sewing machine working on its own before it very slowly stopped and ceased movement of its compartments completely, after which I calmed down, feeling cozy, and fell back asleep. To this day, my aunt and parents don't believe me. Story 6. My boyfriend and I were in our house eating dinner. Our front door was open and the screen door was closed. We heard the screen door swing open and slam shut. We both went to the living room, then out onto the front porch. As soon as we went outside, we were hit by a thick, cloying floral sweet smell. It smelled like funeral flowers if you've ever smelled that scent before, just overwhelmingly strong and concentrated right in front of our house. We both felt kind of creeped out, so we went back into the house, into our bedroom. I sat on the edge of our bed, which faced the hallway, and one of our dogs came and hopped onto my lap. My boyfriend and I were speculating about what the door slamming and the smell was all about. I was looking straight ahead into the hall during a lull in the conversation, and I saw a dark shadow pass down the hall, go past our bedroom door and into another room at the end of the hall. It was just tall, vaguely human-shaped, and solid black, like the area where it was somehow just had all the light sucked out of it, and you couldn't see through it. Our dog saw it, too. He went nuts, barking and growling and whining. For some reason, that scared me. More than anything, that he saw it too. I started crying and said I wanted to leave the house, so we got our dogs in the car and left. We were having plumbing problems anyway, so we ended up just staying in a hotel room that night. When we came back the next day, things seemed totally normal, and nothing like that has happened since. Definitely one of the spookiest things I've ever experienced. Answer: have had similar things happen to me. The only difference is that there were no shadow figures, at least none I can remember. But the main difference is that I didn't smell flowers. I smelled something like rotten meat and spoiled eggs. And just like you said, it was sudden and concentrated in an area, and I knew it was concentrated because I wouldn't smell it if I walk a little distance away from it. It was like a specific area, and it was weird. Story 7. Stopped by my husband's nana's to pee while on my lunch break. House was empty because the power had gone out the night before, so Nan was staying elsewhere. I enter the bathroom and hear who's there in an older man's voice. Now, I know there is nobody in this house, but I went looking anyway. I guess his granddad's ghost just wanted to know who the hell was going pee. I had other unexplained encounters earlier in my life, but this one was undeniable. Story 8. I was at a friend's place, a very old wooden high-set house. Previous to this, he told me that it was haunted. Drawers would open and close, cupboards would open and slam shut, etc., etc. I called bullshit as I'd never experienced this myself. Until one night, after playing WoW for too many hours and eating too much pizza, I decided to sleep in his lounge room as he had a futon. I heard shoes walking from right to left. Slowly, they were ladies' shoes, much like the traditional witches' shoes, with the big single brass buckle on the front. They walked slowly, from right to left into the kitchen, paced around and walked back from left to right. I can still hear the steps to this day. They were heavy. There was also a scuff like the heel hit too low before the foot was placed down every other step. There were only the two of us in the house and he was asleep in his room. I shat bricks and told him the next day. He said he heard it as well and it's common. A few weeks later, he said that all the doors and drawers were opening and slamming shut like something was losing its mind in the kitchen. After that, a mirror flew off the wall in the second bathroom and shattered on the floor, and everything immediately fell deadly silent. He never had any issues after that mirror smashed on the floor. Story 9. Whenever me or my siblings are home alone downstairs, we hear footsteps pacing back and forth upstairs. Whenever we get to our stairway, though, the footsteps stop abruptly. Also, sometimes we get home from vacation to find one or two of our windows open. We live in a safe neighborhood, so it's not really a problem. But my mom is convinced that is the work of ghosts, because we obviously would never leave our windows open before going on a road trip. Edit. Our attic is far too small and dangerous for a stowaway. Plus, the only entrance to it is in my mom's closet, which has boxes and stuff. Impossible to get in and out without making a ton of noise. Plus, we have 4 cats and a dog, so no humans or vermin are running around in our house undetected. The footsteps are loud stomps, stomps that pace back and forth and are human, but stop abruptly when I reach the stairs. It's not like something scuttles away and hides, it just stops. Answer. I just remembered an Ouija board story I should share. When I was 10 or 11, my friend brought out an Ouija board at her house. I didn't want any part of it because I believed in demons, but my friend and sister thought it was funny and asked it how old it'll be when I die. It said 14. Then they asked how, and it said black car. About 3 years later, when I was 14, other friends, ones who hadn't heard about the board, said they had dreams of me getting into car crashes or being hit while crossing the road. I immediately asked about the car each time, and they always said a black truck or big, black dark colored car. Multiple friends said this, and when I told them about what the board said, they were freaked out. They had these dreams for months and would tell them to me at lunch. Then, another friend who was in a separate grade, meaning she didn't eat lunch with us and didn't know about the dreams or the board's prediction, was talking to us when she turned to me and said something like, "Hey, OP, I had a weird dream that I was at a funeral. Your siblings and parents were there, and we were all there, but you weren't. I'm not 100% sure whose funeral it was, but I'm pretty sure it was yours." This happened a few weeks before my 15th birthday, so I was freaked. Not long after my friend's dreams, my mom got a black car, and it made me even more scared. A big black Mercedes. I was so freaking paranoid by that point. The weeks leading up to my 15th birthday consisted of me being extra careful crossing the street and always wearing my seatbelt. I was relieved when my birthday came and passed, but it still haunts me. Such a bizarre experience. Story 10. I never believed in the supernatural, but a friend begged me to try a Ouija board, so I did. The triangle was moving around when we were asking questions. I still wasn't convinced, so I asked the so-called spirit to do something to prove you're real, and suddenly the vacuum turned on by itself. Just don't know why that turned on like that. Baffles me. Answer. Used to mess around with those things a lot as a kid, but the last time I ever took mine out was with some of my friends when we were about 10-ish years old. I had the box, put it down flat on the table. The table was built into the floor and one wall and had a cabinet for its base, so this thing was sturdy as fudge, and no one but me was touching the box or anything. I took off the lid and the planchette was going haywire on its own. Granted, it probably got started by being shaken around when I took the lid off, but it just kept going. It wasn't really going and staying on any letters or numbers enough to get a message, and IDK how long we actually sat there and watched it, but it freaked me the fudge out, so I just shut the box again, and back to the game cabinet it went, never to be seen again. I think Mom gave it to Goodwill or something at some point because it's long gone. Story 11. The house I grew up in as a kid. Previous owner that died was an older woman with a piano. There were several times I'd wake to a piano playing, walk around the house, and everything would be of everyone sound asleep. She really liked Moonlight Sonata. Story 12. Every month on the 5th, since I moved in this house, someone is always screaming, "Let me in a distorted voice outside my door. Story 13. When I was in college and studying at home, I remember needing to find a particular old 17th century play called The Alchemist by Ben Jonson. Me being poor and stupid, I didn't buy the class textbook, so had to find it on my own. I was at my desk, and behind me was a walk-in closet which I used as a library as I collected old and rare books. I remember thinking that I saw the play in an old anthology of literature that I owned, and quickly pushed that out of my mind as I thought it would take too much effort for a text that was surely available on Project Gutenberg online. I heard a loud thump behind me. I turned around in my chair and walked into the closet, and on the floor was a book turned open with the pages facing up. You have to understand for this to truly sink in, that my closet was lined with shelves that extended far enough back that no part of my books were hanging over the edge. I was meticulous and careful with them, as some were relics. I looked at the book in disbelief, and when I saw that it was the anthology of literature I was thinking of, and not only that, but the header of the page showed it was a page of the play The Alchemist, I knew this was something truly out of the ordinary and unexplainable. I have more experiences in this house, but this one will remain, for me, as irrefutable proof that something intelligent that understood my inner thoughts caused that to happen. In the same house, on the day my father died, my grandma also tells a story of how pictures in the house were flying off the walls at her. My dad disliked her guts, and she's always been an honest person. I don't know if I'd call what happened to me an experience with a ghost necessarily, but I thought it was worth mentioning. Story 14. This is my mother's story, and it's more about communicating with the deceased rather than seeing. So she's at work one day, office job, and she needs to make a phone call to pay an invoice or something. So she calls the company and starts speaking to a man. She suddenly gets the urge to interrupt him and say, "Sorry, but have you put the wallpaper up in your bathroom yet?" The guy hangs up immediately. She's feeling a bit weird about it until he calls back and tells her that his wife recently passed away unexpectedly. Prior to her passing, she had been bugging him to finish the wallpaper in the bathroom. It really shocked both of them, but she felt like he was happy to get that message even if it was another nag. Story 15. My friend has insisted that his parents' house was haunted for years while we were growing up. His sister told stories about a ghost that would turn her TV on at nighttime, or do something like shake her bed while she was in it, but I never really believed them. One day, they asked me if I would house sit while they were all on vacation. It's where my drum kit lived at the time, so I was always there anyways. We were in a band, so I didn't think anything of it and said yes. And that was when my first and only paranormal experience happened. I'll never forget it. I had slept in on a sunny day. It was about 11 in the morning, and I had nowhere to go. I was laying awake in a bed in their spare bedroom upstairs, knowing full well that I was alone in the house, when all of a sudden the sound of an adult man singing opera filled the entire house for about 30 seconds. It was extremely loud and completely unignorable. I will never forget how scared I was. And after the singing stopped, my heart was absolutely beating out of my chest. I got dressed and sprinted out of the house as fast as I could and didn't go back to finish my house-sitting duties after that. I figured the ghost had it handled. Story 16. Used to have a delivery route, third shift. Part of my route had me passing through a national forest. The first few weeks going through this forest had the hairs on my arms standing up. It was in the first week that one day I stopped to get gas at the town just before going into the forest. I never walked away from the car, used my card at the pump, blah blah. But as soon as I get to the forest, I feel like something is in my car with me, in the back seat. I didn't see anything through the rear view and I was petrified of turning around, but I knew what it looked like all the same. To sum it up, an old lady with a face similar to a scream mask with long, stringy gray hair. After a few weeks, I come to peace with whatever the fudge is guarding the forest. Basically told it that I respect the forest. I'm not here to tear things up, litter, whatever. Months later, I'm being sent off to other areas to fill in. I'm friends with the guy that took over my route, and one night we're both talking before the routes were set out to load up, and I asked him if anything had ever joined him on the route. He knew exactly what I was talking about. Knew it was in the national forest, something in the back seat. Only his was some jackal-headed creature, not an old lady. Later, I asked someone else that used to have the route if they had seen strange things. Again, in the forest. It got to be amusing since if I filled in on that route or anything, I never had problems anymore on that stretch. I used to see other weird things out there, though. Mostly weird lights. One night I thought there was a police car somewhere until I realized the forest was too dense in this area for a car to be in there. There were weird flashing blue lights. There's camping areas out there, but not on that main road. I usually don't discuss this much because people try to explain things away, but they weren't there. I saw what I saw. Story 17. Brother had recently passed away and my wife was visiting his wife. A helium balloon, which was partially deflated, followed them from room to room. My sister-in-law felt comforted that it was my brother letting her know he was there. Story 18. When my wife and I were house hunting, we went to a house that was in a pretty busy part of town, but sort of tucked back out of the way from the main road. The outside was nice, big property, beautiful trees, but the backyard backed up to the main road so you could hear the traffic. We were turned off by it, but we all had to drive a bit to get there and said, let's at least go see it. So we walked through. The owners had already vacated for the most part, other than staged furniture for showing. The upstairs was meh. Old carpets, outdated wallpaper, ancient kitchen. We weren't impressed. But we were kept moving through, knowing we could talk down the price based on what we saw. The last thing we had to see was the basement, which you got to through the back of the kitchen. When I got to the top of the steps, I felt something. Maybe it was spidey sense. I don't know. I'm not really a sense things kind of person. My wife is very open to the supernatural and paranormal, and she felt the same thing. I stood on the top step and just felt this weird feeling. The feeling is hard to describe, but it legit made me stop in place. It was a feeling I've never had since. It was like I was walking into a dense, invisible fog that you could feel around you. The hairs on my arms stood up, and I just felt everything in my body saying, something is not right down here. But we walked down the steps, and it only got heavier as we went. When I got to the bottom of the steps, it felt like I was wrapped in a heavy weighted vest and walking through sand. I looked at my wife and mouthed, "Do you feel that?" and the look on her face was of just pure dread. She was pale white, and she was obviously feeling the same thing. She stayed at the bottom of the stairs and went, "I'm going back up. I don't think we need to see anything else. Let's go," before turning around and going upstairs. The realtor wanted to keep looking, so I moved through with her thinking we'd be quick. We opened a door, saw where the washer and dryer were,